Take the time to really listen to yourself. And even though you may feel like you want to push through, if you can just slow down and feel into it, really assess if it's in your best and highest interest, make the decision from that place versus feeling like you have to rush through it. Because one thing that I always am constantly trying to remember is it's okay if it doesn't happen today. There is a tomorrow, the sun will rise. And honestly, nothing is really that important to get too bent out of shape about. So if you can just slow down, breathe through it, and not beat yourself up for getting it all done. I feel like we put so much pressure on ourselves, or can put so much pressure on ourselves to do and perform and achieve so much. Just taking all that away and saving it for tomorrow is going to be just fine. You're still going to be moving. You're still going to be going forward in the direction you want to go.
Help Me See is a podcast that redefines the word vision through vulnerable and real conversations, my own private introspective ramblings about the things that I think about in the wee hours of the morning, and my deep core belief that your nothingness is your everything, and all you have to do is see. I'm Bianca Mora. I'm your host. I am an educator, a photographic artist, and I believe that your daily photo habit can be the key to unlocking the ability to be more present in your everyday life and live deeper into your intention and purpose. We're not about the small talk here. Grab your coffee, get cozy, and let's talk. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Help Me See. I am recording this intro for the podcast in bed. I just landed in Atlanta. I have a week-long gig here. And I'm about to go to sleep, but I actually really just felt like speaking this out loud. So today on the show, we have Meghan Dahl, and she's talking to us about what it is to basically decide to start your business over. To recognize when something is not working for you and choosing to pivot, choosing to change direction. And what I love so much about this is this idea that goes against, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Because it depends on what definition of broke you're thinking about or you're looking at, right? So Meghan had a very lucrative and successful wedding photography business, and it was really wearing her down physically, mentally. And we talk about the unique struggle where it can be really confusing and disorienting when you love what you do. You love it so much that sometimes the boundaries can get blurred because there's not really an on and off switch. So this is her story about how she kind of course corrected once she came to terms with the fact that this wasn't working for her and what she decided to do instead. And I just hope it serves as this big fat permission slip to burn it all down. No, to really stay aware of how you're feeling in your life, in your business, in your art, in your work, in your parenting, and just doing something a certain way because it's the way that it always has been done is not a good enough reason, And this topic is very near and dear to me right now, as well as I'm currently in the development stage of this course that I'm creating about really honing in on your vision and being so present to it that you're able to tap into it and create from that place in any situation. And I think that a huge part in knowing your voice and knowing what it is that you're trying to create is having this connection to your truth. And sometimes that means having to do the uncomfortable thing. Sometimes that means when a client is looking at you with an expectation to tell them what to do with their hands, that you resist encouraging a pose and you direct them more inward to themselves. And because that's what you believe in, and you really are aspiring more to have them be comfortable rather than um, acquiesce and play into the role of the quote unquote professional. And of course, I have all the answers. Let me tell you the answers, because I think the best coaches, the best teachers, the best humans, instead of speaking for someone else or taking on the role just because it seems to be the expectation, I think that the more powerful choice is to always direct someone back inward towards themselves, with support and, you know, whatever the situation calls for in your heart. But how did I get here? How did I get to talking about this? I don't, this is what happens when I start recording a podcast intro at midnight after a flight. Anyway, um, I was working on the course on the plane as well. So that's why it's really top of mind and tied to this topic that we're talking about today. Anyway, if you're interested in learning more about Meghan, her links will be in the show notes. She is up to some really interesting stuff. She talks a lot about the art of the sale. And yes, I'm so thrilled to bring you this conversation of a real life artist that is choosing to create that balance and own that balance of, work and play um, and really did a brave thing in course correcting. I love getting to hear her thoughts behind the moves that she made, and I hope that you find some inspiration in here. Okay, without further ado, here's Meghan.
Hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Help Me See. And today we have a special guest, Meghan Dole. Meghan is a photographer and an educator, so obviously very near and dear to my heart. And I'm so excited to talk with you today, Meghan. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here. And I will just say this. My last name is just Dahl.
Oh, doll. I love it.
Oh, I know. I love that you were trying to put a spin on it because everybody is like, "Is that really your last name?" I'm like, "Yes, it is."
I love
So
it.
straight up doll. I think that like when my parents moved here from like the Scandinavia, it was
Yeah.
Dahl, but because there were so
Oh,
many in Minnesota, so many Swedes and Norwegians in the area that they changed it to Doll just to be different. So a little backstory, but it is just doll, like baby doll.
awesome. Welcome, Meghan Doll. I love it.
Yes, thank you.
How are you today?
I'm great. I'm great. It's been a fun morning. This is one of my days that I dedicate to education. So to the education side of my business. So it's been really fun.
Love it. Love it. So today, Megan and I are going to have a conversation around what it looks like when you're in a business that you love so much, or you have a craft like photography or what have you that you love so much. And the line between, rest and play, work and personal gets really hazy and blurred, and how easy that can be. But before we get into that conversation, I would just love to know, Megan, how you got to where you're at today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think to start from like the very beginning, like I was just always one of those kids that was, like, obsessed with photography. I had a family of photographers in my, um like, my uncle was a photographer, my granddad was a photographer, he had a darkroom in his basement, so it just, like, everybody was always taking pictures around me, and I found a journal when I was 10 years old that was like, "When I grow up, I wanna be a photographer or a ballerina." I was like, "Okay, that's about right." So it's just always been kind of ingrained in me, and so when I started taking pictures in high school, it was just like an instant love affair of just, like, exploration and, like, I just remember being, like, struck so deeply and to the point where my teacher was like, "Are you okay?" Because I was, like, frozen in time and just, like, couldn't even, like, move. I was so, like, inspired and shook and, like, just, like, it hit me really hard.
Okay, what about it? Pause. What was it
Mm.
that you were seeing? Because I had, like, similar experience.
Yeah, it was the decisive moment. Are you familiar with
Oh,
Henry
yes.
Cartier-Bresson? Like,
Yes.
what he's
Oh,
like, like,
Yeah.
"What is going on here?" It was just
Yes.
like, it just struck me, like, how impactful an image can be in just capturing that one tiny moment in time, and it's just like, if you wait for it, line it up, and just, like, set yourself like, it's just so, like, I don't know, visually, like, orgasmic? Is that a word? I don't know.
it is in this I have goosebumps, so I'll take it.
Yeah.
I remember in high school, my high school photography class, it was the same thing, exactly what you're describing, so I resonate so hard. I had been taking it for a while, I loved it, but then I came across, Jim Goldberg's work. He does the series The Rich and the Poor with the black and whites of the families and then the writing. They would,
Oh,
write whatever they felt about the picture when they looked at it. And there was something about that because all that I had seen before was like, flowers and fashion but when I
yeah.
saw that, my brain went like I totally started fritzing out like, "Oh, wait a minute. This new world opened," and that's exactly what you're describing. I just had to
Yeah.
interject. I love
Yeah.
that.
It's so exciting. It's when you, like, to find a passion like that, at a young age like that, I feel like it's such a gift because from that point on, I was just, like, beelining towards it. So, it's like I got to college, I was, I took a photography course and I was like, "Yep, I'm gonna do this. This is what I'm gonna do." And my parents were all like, "No, what are you doing? Like, you need a real job. You need to, like, get a paycheck and how are you gonna do this?" I was like, "Don't worry, I got it. I'll figure it out." Like, I was just so, like, focused on it. So, uh, after college, I started a wedding business. I shot I built that up for about 10 years, and I had this great wedding business, and I had shooters underneath me. I had all these people, like, doing their own weddings. It was wonderful, and it was also the most exhausting thing I've ever done. And it ended up, sort of breaking my spirit in a way because I realized how physically challenging it was to shoot at that high level and that capacity and that length and all of that. And so I just got to a huge, like, breaking point of, like, I can't do this. Like, I cannot do this anymore. And it was a real, like, pivot in my life where I was like, how am I gonna I love photography so much, and the thought of, like, breaking up with photography, like, there was no other choice for me. Like, I can't not take pictures. Like, I love this. This is my path, but I couldn't do this part of it anymore. So I was like, okay, well, something's gotta happen. I need to pivot. I need to do something. And so I just, like, pulled the plug on weddings in 2008, which is, like, a terrible time to pull the plug on anything. You remember the housing crisis and the economic crisis, everything, like, collapsing around us. So I was, like, so to my brim. I was like, it can't go on anymore. So I quit weddings and then I switched to portraits. A lot of my clients, everybody gets married, has babies. So it seemed like a very easy, like, transition. And I just started spreading the word and ran a group on and got all sorts of crazy with that. But that's a totally different topic. It was kind of crazy. And then And then here I am, and I've been running this portrait business for the last 10 years, 12 years now, it seems. Yep, 12 years. And it's just been like so incredibly rewarding. And I just feel so grateful to have this gift of a business. And I just, yeah, here I am.
That's amazing. What helped you to find your way towards the education side of things and sharing that knowledge with other photographers?
Yeah, it started several years ago where I was just like, I was asked to speak at the Minnesota Photographers Association convention. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, really? This is like, you want to hear from me? I had been talking a bit about like the artwork that I like to provide for people. And, I think in my community, in my town, I'm known for that. And so I did a whole presentation about like just the art of the sale and how to create heartfelt art for clients to create a business that will, really be profitable and sustainable and just provide so much joy and, be rewarding for you. Um and that's kind of what snowballed it. But it was a very slow, slow, slow start. So I just started like contributing to like blog posts and or other like websites and just being a contributor to certain things. And then it wasn't until 2020 that I was like, okay, let's do this. And so, everybody was having a whole existential crisis in 2020 of like, what am I doing with my life? How am I serving? What can I do more of? Or what do I want to do less of? And so that's when the real pivot came for the education. And I just started focusing more on it. And yeah, so I've been doing it for a couple of years now, and it's just growing and growing, and it's really fun.
How are you I know it's different in terms of, like, the hours and probably the intensity of the day, weddings and portraiture and family, stuff like that, but what did you decide to, like, put in place or, like, what was your mindset going into portraiture in effort to not repeat the pattern that had happened with with the wedding business?
Well, the whole idea of making the switch was that okay, babies and families are like half hour, 45-hour long sessions. They can be longer, but they're really kind of like they're shorter. So that was like part of it, just like physically, what am I capable of? Because really the amount of work physically that weddings required for me, it literally like, when I say it broke my body down, like, it broke my body down, like, I had to go to a hand therapist just from carrying all those heavy cameras and lenses, and I had herniated a disc, and I had, like it was really, like, physically crushing me, so I was like, "Okay." So, knowing that when I switch to portraits, that's what's I'm gonna already have lightened my load so much, um, but it was interesting because when you love what you do, you wanna work at it all the time anyway. So it still kind of came up a little bit just in a different way. Like all of a sudden I started getting like wrist problems from all the, computer time or, just like it's still like you still wanna work all the time when you love what you're doing. And there's nothing wrong with that until it starts like causing problems in your life or causing problems to you physically or mentally or just like, maybe somehow stagnating some other part of your life, then it's time to take a good hard look at like, okay, it's time to just peel away, open it up, like let some of that go. You don't need to be working every night. You can have a social life. You can do the things that normal people do. And so it's really been a balancing act and I still struggle and I still, I'm a work in progress. Um, but I've gotten so much better at it.
What? I'm like, "You can have a life?" What what kind of boundaries have you set in place for yourself?
Oh, yeah. Well, first of all, Sunday is a hard no, hard boundary. Like I never work on a Sunday. And um yeah, I think it started as a joke like it's the Lord's Day. I'm not like a hugely like religious person, but I'm very spiritual, but I was like it's my day. It's like my day. It's my self-care day and I am going to dedicate my my Sunday to myself. So And it kind of started with weddings because after a Saturday wedding, you're just like so crushed by the next day, you can hardly move. So it's like you've been hit by a truck. But now it's just like, I'm going to self care Sunday every Sunday. So that's my one hard boundary. I don't really shoot on the weekends hardly at all anymore. So I think a lot of photographers get in the mindset that they have to catch the golden hour. They have to shoot nights and weekends, right? And they have to shoot on Saturdays to like or weekends to like get the right clients. And I just have been like never really a purveyor of that mindset. Like I'm like my hours are just like everyone else's. Well, they're a little different, but like 10 to 5, and that's when we shoot. And if you want to come, then you will come. And if you don't, then I'm sure there's a million other photographers out there that you can find. Um so I around the busy season, which is this time of year, I do shoot one Saturday a month, but I have just gotten really selective and like really picky. If it's not necessary, most times people want to get out of work or they, not everybody works from home, so they can come for lunch or they can, there's come after school. And so it all works out.
I think that it's really easy to forget just how much freedom and power and autonomy we have in this, like in any business that you're creating on your own, really. I mean, I remember that I used to feel this I don't know, kind of like an insecurity around how I didn't think I needed to only shoot around golden hour, but everyone was like, "Oh, yeah." Like, I would see all the forums being like, "Oh, they wanted to shoot at this time." And I said, "No way." I'm like, "But why?"
But why? I know, I love that. I've never understood that either. I actually love it. I love it. Like I had a home session the other day and it was like this horrible stormy day. And I was like, this is gonna be exciting. Like, how am I gonna make this work?
Oh my
It's like just
gosh.
such a fun challenge. And they were gorgeous. The photos were gorgeous. And
My
so
gosh. I am with you 1,000,000,000%. I had a shoot recently, and it was, like, the highest sun, like, basically near noon in a small backyard slash in the house that and the house was really dark. My favorite session I've ever done. I'm like, there's so much beauty in the constraints of
yeah,
what is, and if you can walk into wherever you are and not feel panic and let
yeah,
that cloud you, then there's just such a world open. I feel like that's a metaphor for, like, everything in life.
yeah.
But, what do you find to be a common thing that your students come to you for?
Most people that I've been talking to recently are coming to me for more like strategy and just like, how do I set this up so that it's not going to crush my life? Like they're at the breaking point where like, this isn't sustainable. I don't know how I'm going to do this. I don't know if I want to do this. And it seems like that's where they find me. And that's my sweet spot is just like, setting a business up so that it's not going to ruin the rest of your life, so that you can grow it. It can like flourish and like really thrive, but it's not gonna like make you stay up till 2 a.m. editing. It's not going to, make you work every weekend. It's not gonna take time away from your family. It's not gonna take, just so you kind of like I help people iron all of that out and just get all the systems in place so that you can have a life.
Right. And I and then like ironically, I it seems like when you start to be a little bit more hard-lined about your boundaries and giving yourself the space from your business, it's not taking away from your business because you're showing up to your business fresh and with like this renewed
Mhm.
energy and purpose, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's like you just get a lease on life, It's like each day is new and you're like, "Okay, let's do this." Yeah, absolutely.
Can share
Yeah.
about your vision for your photography
Yeah.
specifically. Like, what is it that you're looking for? And I love knowing that your inspiration point began with Henri Cartier-Bresson. I'm like, wow, sophisticated high schooler.
Yeah, so my vision for my photography is really just to, like, be the mirror for people, to just see the love in their life, I feel like I'm not a parent, so I can't speak for this, but I feel like as I have witnessed. It's hard for people to, like, see through the everyday and really see, like, why they're doing it all, what's it all for, and so I just wanna be that little window into, like, the why and, like, bring the beauty and bring the love and just, like, show them the love, of their family. So when they see their photos, they're gonna, like, feel that little well in their heart, that little flutter when they walk by them in their home, or, when they're looking through their album, they're gonna, like, be taken back to that stage and age of their kids' lives and that, like, that fun moment we had or they had in the studio. It's really simple. I've really kind of tailored my style and the the way that I work with people to just be, like, as easy as possible. Like, I only shoot in the studio. I do shoot some stuff, like, on location or outdoors if people have been with me and they require or request it, but otherwise, I just make it really simple and keep it really classic and really neutral and just, like, capture the love.
You know, it's so funny as you're speaking, I can't help but assume that like that vision and that um ethos is probably mirrored to your students, right? Because I'm sure you're mirroring back to them what it is they're coming at you with, but they're not seeing just the way sometimes parents can struggle seeing the love in their life. Like, where are the points in their business where it's draining versus energizing?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I bet that's really true, and yeah, absolutely. I love that idea. I've never thought of that.
You know, it's see, look, and I
I know,
reflected it back to you.
reflecting
This is
back to
what you
me. Thank you. I love that. But that's all of life, right? Like, we're all just a big old reflection.
Yes, yes, that's all it is. So what is going on for you right now? What do you have on top, like, in your business? What's going on with you at the moment?
Um, at the moment, I am working on doing, well, a few things. So I'm working on a workshop with some focus on, like, getting over the fear of social media and, like, how to help people over that hurdle, because I feel like that's something that's coming up a lot, that people are just, like, kinda have this, like, you know, just I don't even know what the word is, but they just, like, what is the word? They have a block around it and they can't get through it, and they are scared to post, don't wanna feel a slave to it. Like, I get it, I totally understand, but it has become such a, um integral part of doing business in this world, especially for photographers. So, just helping people with the hurdle there and getting them past that. So I'm kind of putting together this workshop that's going to be at the end of the month for that. It's busy season in the portrait world, so I'm what I'm really trying to do this season is to not feel the overwhelm, and it usually starts for me this around this time of year. And so I'm like, okay, what are we gonna do differently this year that we didn't do last year? How can we do it better than last time? It's because it does inevitably seem to, like, reach a crescendo, and it's like, it feels a little too I feel a little too exhausted by the end of December than I want to, and I also am like, "What happened to fall?" It's, like, my favorite season, and I'm like, "It's gone," and I'm like, "I wanna enjoy it."
Yeah, you're like, "I wanna enjoy an apple orchard without a camera on my face."
No, exactly. I wanna do the fun things. So it's, like, the ongoing, like, juggling act, like, how do you balance it all?
Right, and especially and now too, where it's the portrait and it's the education, the juggle. You know, with the overwhelm, I'm curious, it seems like you have a very grounded present, shooting style. You're like, "Oh, it's a cloudy day? Well, that's exciting," very open to those kind of things. Is it the sheer volume of work that can be overwhelming?
It is, yeah, because people tend to order more this time of year because they're trying to get, like, holiday gifts and, like, things like that, so there's, like, the influx of I shoot a lot of newborns, I shoot a lot of babies, so that happens, like, year round, but at a certain point, people come back once a year, And so it's like all those clients, and they all wanna come between, like, September and December because they want gifts for the holidays, they want the holiday cards, they want, they've got the extra income. I feel like everybody always has more money this time of year because, you know, versus, like, April when everybody's, like, just dealing with taxes. So people just buy more, and so we do a lot of, like, artwork and albums and frames, so it's just a lot more, like, high touch and, like, getting all the things in line and ready for them, so
Yeah, I forgot you do in-person sales. That makes
yes.
total sense. That is a huge part of it. No wonder you have incredible artwork all around you.
Yes, yes.
Love it. You're probably people's favorite person for the holidays. Like, "Oh, yes, I know the perfect gift that
I'm
everyone will
kinda
get."
like Santa.
You are? Oh
And,
my
like,
gosh.
you think about grandma and mom and, like, your aunt, you're like, "Oh my god, you're so good." I'm like, "Thank you very much. Perfect." I love
Oh
it.
my god. I love it. Um, s Before we come to a close, is there anything that is just on top for you that you feel like is really important to include in this conversation of, keeping your passion alive? Like whatever it is you're doing, whether it's photography or it's something else, some other craft that you're doing that kind of feels like a slippery slope of I love it so much so I can't find space for myself in that world.
Yeah, I think, you know, we all have intuition into like what's going to be serving us best, and we all have intuition into um, you know, mm, things that aren't serving us best. And if you just can, I guess the biggest thing I would say is just take the time to really listen to yourself. And even though you may feel like you want to push through, if you can just slow down and like feel into it and like really like assess if it's in your best and highest interest, make the decision from that place versus like feeling like you have to rush through it. Because one thing that I always am constantly trying to remember is like, it's okay if it doesn't happen today. Like, there is a tomorrow. The sun will rise. Like, and honestly, nothing is really that important to like get too bent out of shape about. So, if you can just slow down and just like breathe through it and not beat yourself up for getting it all done. Like, I feel like we put so much pressure on ourselves, or can put so much pressure on ourselves to like do and perform and achieve so much. It's like just taking all that away and saving it for tomorrow, it's going to be just fine. You're still going to be moving. You're still going to be going forward in the direction you want to go. So that's kind of the biggest thing that I always try and remember and focus on.
Yeah, I feel that. My mother-in-law is a nurse. I'm like, "Okay, I'm not saving someone's life right now. I am all is well, all is well.
Well,
Just breathe."
as well. Yeah, right? I know.
Oh my gosh. Megan, where can we follow you? I'll put whatever Megan's links are, I'll put them in the show notes, but can you let us know where we can find more from you?
Absolutely. So you can find my educational platform at The Art of the Sale, at The Art of the Sale, and that's on Instagram or theartofthesale.com. And then my photography platform or website is just megandoll.com. And then the Instagram is at Love Megan Doll. So wherever you want to follow along, I try and be as present there as possible. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Megan. It was such a pleasure.
Yeah. Thank you.